Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to our webinar today. My name is Isabel. In a few minutes, I will be extending a warm welcome to Edgar. Our topic today is enhancing IT security with ELO. Here's a little more information for you before we start. You will be muted during the webinar, but are welcome to ask your question in the question box at any time. After the webinar, we will of course take the time to answer them. You hardly need to take notes. You will receive the training materials relatively soon. And now the moment we have been waiting for. I welcome Edgar. Edgar, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you and welcome from my side as well. Today, I'm talking about how you can enhance the IT security with the ELO ECM suite. So, which topics will we cover? First of all, we'll have a look on the importance of IT security, the IT security landscape, and why you should enhance the IT security in your company. Then we'll have a look on the security features of the ELO ECM suite, which I will show you in the live demo as well. Then we'll talk about what our customers say on enhancing the IT security with the ELO ECM suite. The conclusion, further steps which you should take when you want to enhance the IT security with ELO. And then at the end, we have the questions and answers. And if you have some questions during the webinar, just ask them in the question box. The answers we will give at the end. So let's start with the importance of IT security. So when we have a look on the current IT security landscape, it may look like this in your company or in every company. We have some firewalls, we have security policies, antivirus software, intrusion detection systems, secure communication, data loss prevention, encryption, and so on. So all those things are state of the art, and that's the current IT security landscape. But on the other hand, there can happen some data breaches. And in July 2023 alone, 500 data breaches happened, which caused a damage of more than $5 billion US. So the most data breaches happen because of unauthorized access, as you can see on the right. More than half of them are responsible for data breaches, unauthorized access. Then we have some ransomware. Then we have an inside threat with unknown things which can happen, skimming, other, and malware as well. So more than half of the data breaches worldwide happen because by poor access management. So when you think 52% of data breaches happen because of unauthorized access, then you have to think, why can someone access those information and how can this be possible? So let's have a look on the security features of the ELO ECM suite and how to prevent those things like unauthorized access or inside threats of stealing information of your company. So the ELO ECM suite is an enterprise content management. You have everything is in a central repository. You can file your documents with metadata. You can streamline and automate processes, and it's a secure filing location. So all those features are just enterprise content management features, but there are some security features available as well. For example, access control and authentication. You have to authenticate as a user to get access to the ELO ECM suite. You have audit trails and monitoring, so you can see who has done what and when in the repository. And then we have data protection and encryption. So let's have a look on the authentication process of the ELO ECM suite. So when you want to access the ELO ECM suite, then you have to enter a username or a password, or when you have single sign-on activated, then you don't have to type in your username and your password, then it is typed in or then the current Windows user is used, but the process is the same. So after you have entered your credentials, then with the credentials, with your username and your password and a key, a security key, which only you have, is sent to a so-called authentication server. And the authentication server compares the key with your username and your password and sends back an okay, this fits. This is the user is allowed to access the repository. That's the so-called two-factor authentication. Two-factor because of you know something, that's your username and your password, and you have something, that's your key, which fits to your username and your password. That's two-factor authentication, and that's, well, the most secure way to authenticate a user in days like this. And then it comes to access control. When you want to access a document or folder in the repository, then you have to have the permission. The permissions can be given for user or a group, and you can combine the groups for role-based permissions. And the permissions can be, you can access the folder read-only, or you can change something, you can delete, and so on. So you can have different permissions on files and folders, on documents and folders in the repository. And besides this, there can be some functional permissions for the user or for the group itself, which is set by the administrator in the backend. So that's the access control for documents and folders in the client. You can set them for users and groups. We recommend always set it for groups because user-based permissions can be tricky when it comes to changing them. And you can combine them for role-based permissions. So you're a member of this group and that group. Let's say I'm in the finance group and I'm in the supervisor group. Then I can have different permissions than a user which is only in the finance group. So that's role-based permissions with a combination of groups. And then we have the audit trail and the monitoring. The audit trail shows you everything, what has happened to the folder, to the document, who has changed something, who has opened the document for reading, and so on. So it's a comprehensive activity tracking, and it's real-time monitoring because it's written in the audit trail in the second when it happens. And it's regulatory compliance and reporting. So that's the audit trail. You can always say who has done what with the document, even when they just opened it for preview or something. You can say that this happened with the audit trail. And then it comes to data protection and encryption. So when you encrypt the document, then the document is encrypted. No one can access the document with the client. No one can access the document. Well, you can download the document, but you can't access it as well because it's encrypted and you need a key for this. You need a password for this to access the document. So let's have a look on those things in a live demo in our demo environment. So this is our demo environment, and we have two clients opened here. One is for Daniel Cooper. He's the CEO of our Contido Corp, of our presentation company, and the other one is another user. She works in customer service, and she uses the web client. And Daniel Cooper can access the repository with his ELO Rich client, and he's logged in already. So we have logged in and we have authenticated the user already, and then he can access the repository just by clicking on the tile up here. And then we see some folders, and we can click through the folders, and then we see some subfolders. And for example, here we have the folders for our customers. And when it comes to the permissions of the folder, this can be seen in our permissions tab in the metadata form. So this can be seen here. And those are the permissions for the customers folder. Permissions always have different, or you can have different types of permissions. So the customer service, for example, has read permissions, so they can access the folder just for reading. They can change the metadata, so when something changes in a customer's folder, like the address of the customer, or they have a new employee, then you can change them. They can delete an entry as well. They can edit the entry, the documents in the folders. They can edit the list, which means that they can add a subfolder to a folder which exists here, but they can't set the permissions. And here we can see who are the members of the group, while the administrator is member of the group customer service, and Jessica Davis is member of the group customer service. So she can do all those things. She can view the folders and documents, change metadata, delete them, edit them, add another subfolder, and so on. When it comes to everyone, which is a built-in group in the ELO ECM suite, so the everyone group is always there. You can't change the name and you can't delete it. And that's every user in who has access to the repository. And they can only view the entries here, and they can only change the metadata. So when, let's say, Acme LLC has a new address, then they can change the metadata in there. The sales department has the same rights as the customer service, but there are different users in here. That's William Johnson. And only the supervisor of the sales department, that's a combined group, that's in this case William Johnson as well, they can change or set the permissions for those folders. So everyone in customer service and sales can do many things, but not changing the permissions. This can only be done when you're the supervisor of the sales department. They can change the permissions as well. And when you change something in this permission tab, so, well, if we gave the everyone group an additional right, let's say edit list, then the rights will be brought to the sub entries as well. So that's the permissions for the customers folder. And as I said, we have two different users in here. One is Daniel Cooper. He's the CEO. He has access to the customers folder because he's member of the everyone group. Another user is Jessica Davis. She's the one from customer service, and she has access to this folder as well. So when we go to the repository with her client, she uses the web client. Then we go on Contigo Corp, and then we can see the customers folder in here, and then she can see the folder. The folder structure, which she can see, is slightly different to the folder structure of Daniel Cooper in here, because there are different permissions for the folders. She can see company organization, customers, marketing, product management, project, purchasing, and the sales folder. And there she has different rights in here, or permissions. And when it comes to Daniel Cooper, he is member of the management group. He is the CEO of the company. He has some other folders in here as well. For example, the finance department, the management folder, and the purchasing department. Those are three folders which Jessica Davis can't see. Because when it comes to the management folder, and when we have a look on the permissions tab, then we can see that only management has access to this folder. And she is not part of management group. That's only Charlotte Bennett, Daniel Cooper, Emily Thompson, and Jack Edwards. There's no Jessica Davis in here. So when you don't have permission on a folder or on a document or on something in the repository, then you can't see it, which makes it possible for you not only to hide information for the users, but you can provide the information which the users need in the repository. So when they don't need, for example, the marketing folder, then you can hide the marketing folder for users who don't need the marketing folder in here. And that's permissions. We have users, we have groups, we have a combination of groups to make it possible for role-based permissions. And we have different details of the permissions. So viewing a document, changing the metadata, deleting something, edit something, add a subfolder to the folders and set the permissions. And if you don't have the permission for something, then you can't do it. So when you don't have the permission for viewing the document, then you can't see the folder or the document. Another thing is encryption of those documents in here. No, not encryption, monitoring. First, monitoring. We have a document in here which, well, recently someone worked on. That's a document which is created on June 19th, I think. Yeah. So nearly 1 week ago. And here in the document feed, you can see many things. Elizabeth Saunders has created the document, and then she wrote Sean Roberts that she has filed the document, and then he suggests to add a picture, and then he converted it to a PDF and sent it to Daniel Cooper for approval. That's a slide overview of what has happened to the document, but there's another possibility to see what has happened to the document, and that's the audit trail and the monitoring. Report for entry can be found here in the properties for report for entry. And in the report for entry, which you can see here, you can create a report for the selected entry where you can see who has done what with the document. And when you click on it, then you can configure the report. You can change the number of entries. You can change the date from to. If you want to see what a selected user has done with the document, then you can select one here, and then you can set the actions which you want to see in the report. And we just click OK because we want to see everything, and then the report is created, and then you can see who has done what with the document. So today at 10:47, I opened the document in preview mode. I am Daniel Cooper, and I opened the document. The administrator changed the permissions for the document on 8:25. The index server edited the metadata today at 8:25 and so on. So you can see everything in here from the beginning. Let's select the date from the beginning to the actual date. So that's an overview of the report. You can select a user who has done what, and when, and that's the action which was done. So that's the report for an entry for a document, and then you can see everything who has done what with the document. And then you can tell someone has changed something, someone has opened the document for reading, and so on. And which gives you the possibility to monitor the changes and to see who has done what in the system. So that's monitoring of a document. You even can get an alert when something changes in the document or in the folder, and then you can tell, or then you get a notification when something happens. The third security feature in the ELO ECM suite is the encryption of documents. When you file a document in the repository, then you can set the option to encrypt the document. And then the document is encrypted not only in the ELO ECM suite, but when you want to, let's say, download the document, you can't do it because it's encrypted and you can't see something. And we have one document in here which is encrypted. That's the contract with Contilo Corp and Contilo AG. So that's the headquarter of the Contilo company. And they have a contract, and that's an information where not everyone should have access to it. That's the reason why it's in the management folder, but not even everyone in the management group should have access to it. We could change the permissions just for Daniel Cooper, then no one else would see them. Or we just could encrypt the document, and it's, well, a contract, so it should be encrypted. And to access the document, when you want to access it, then you have to enter the password for the encryption key, which is defined in the backend in the administration console. And I hope I remember it. And then you can decrypt the document, and then you can access the contract. So that's encryption. And on the other hand, when we, for example, change the user to someone else from the management group in the web client, let's try it. Let's take Charlotte Bennett. I know that she is in the management group of Contilo Corp. And then we go to the management folder. She can access this folder because she is in the management group. Then we go to the headquarter folder, and then click on the contract Contilo Corp, and then it says the document cannot be shown. The document is encrypted and cannot be opened with this client. Well, you could just, for example, open it in read-only mode, which is possible, but it's a protected document as well. So you can't even open it like this because it's just encrypted. So you can't do anything with this document. Even if you would change the file ending to PDF, you can't do something with it. So that's encryption of documents to make sure that not everyone in your company has access to this information. And we have sometimes, or many times, customers who encrypt such things like contracts or something, because you need a password for this to access the document. And you, even when you can see it in the repository, you can't open it, or, well, you can download it, but you can't do anything with it. So those are the security features of the ELO ECM suite. We have two-factor authentication, we have monitoring, active monitoring, and we have encryption for this. And we have, of course, the permissions for the documents and folders in the repository. So we have access control and authentication. You have to authenticate to get access to the repository. We have audit trails and monitoring, and we have data protection and encryption. One example, what our customers say. One of our customers, the airport in Munich, they use ELO for not only for enhancing their IT security, but what they did, they replaced the personal archives of the employees in the company. They have to file everything in the ELO ECM suite, and then they can collaborate on the documents at any time, but the access to protected information is also kept secure they use some of the security features of the ELO ECM suite. And they have an integration in a third-party application or in some third-party applications like SAP or their CAD system, and they use it for contract management as well with an electronic signature. But one of their key features is the enhanced IT security with the ELO ECM suite. So what's the conclusion? How can you improve the IT security with the ELO ECM suite? We have two-factor user authentication. We have a username, we have a password, and we have a secret key which can be exchanged with an authentication server. We have Active Directory integration, such things. So can be configured in many ways to authenticate your users. It's granular access control with the users and the groups and the combination of users and groups, and for getting role-based permissions in the repository. With comprehensive audit trails where you can see at any time, when you have the permission to show, by the way, where you can see at any time who has done what with the document, who has opened the document in read-only mode, who has opened the document in the preview, who has changed something with the document. So you can see everything with the comprehensive audit trails, and you can configure live alerts and real-time monitoring as well. When you encrypt the documents, then it's an end-to-end encryption, and you can use it for data masking and anonymization. So further steps, how to start to improve the IT security with the ELO ECM suite in your company. First of all, find an ELO business partner. There are many business partners on our website, can be found on elo.com/partner finder, and then you can find the partner in the country where you are located. The second step we would recommend is eliminate the data silos, because many times in the companies it looks like this. A sales department has a data silo where they save their documents and such things. Marketing department has its own data storage. Finance, HR, and R&D all have their data silos, and those can be eliminated with the ELO ECM suite. Then you have a central repository. Then you have much better control of who is accessing the documents. You can set the permissions like this, that only a few users have access to the documents and the folders, or you can set it to who can change what, and then you have monitoring and such things. So eliminate the data silos with the ELO ECM suite would be the second step, which we recommend, because then you have access control and authentication, you have audit trails and monitoring, and then you have data protection and encryption. And what do you need for all those things? You just need the ELO ECM suite, because all those things which we saw now are included in the standard of the ELO ECM suite. You don't need some additional modules for this. Those are standard features of the ELO ECM suite. So last but not least, the questions and the answers. And we have one question. What kind of second factor authentication methods the ECM suite supports? First of all, we can authenticate against an Active Directory. We have some additional modules that you can use OAuth authentication, for example, and maybe there's several other ways to authenticate a user against another authority, which can be configured, but I'm not the technician. So there are many ways of two-factor authentication with the ELO ECM suite. in standard, it comes with with the authentication against an Active Directory, for example. So, no more questions so far. Well, then I say thank you for your attention, and well, see you next time. Hear you next time.
Thank you very much for this great presentation, Edgar. We are currently planning new webinar dates, and they will be published in the near future. So stay tuned for more news. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I hope to welcome you at our next webinar as well. And until then, have a great day. Goodbye.